a lot of the visionary discussions around the capabilities of AI are ahead of where the products are right now, the capabilities. Many companies are just launching agentic solutions right now into the industry. And I got to tell you, even as we're looking into those agentic solutions, and Amplitude is doing the same in terms of launching its own AI agent on top of our platform, the solutions are becoming incredible. Like what agentic could do for a business is phenomenal.
Welcome to the Information Week podcast. I'm Senior Editor Jean-Pierre Ruth, and in today's episode, it's going to be a one-on-one session where I'm going to be speaking with Dan Carpenter, the CIO of Amplitude. Dan, so good to be seeing you and speaking with you today.
Hey, JP. Thanks very much for having me.
All right. So for today's discussion, we're going to be looking at, is organizational change inevitable when new technology is introduced? One of the elements of transformation, of course, is the technology that's brought in when organizations want to look to make a change and see how things go with some new resources in play. But the other element that comes with that, of course, is when the technology meets the organization of itself and the people behind it. There can be times where team leaders are looking, or individuals are looking and saying, "Hey, how does this fit in with the way I'm used to operating?" Or how do particular divisions or organizations within the organization then fit when suddenly the technology is kind of calling on different teams to then take on different roles or tasks, or they might even be merged or swapped around, or can be reduced. So Dan, let's start with just kind of looking at that first kind of layer potentially, or even you can add in what are your initial thoughts that when it comes to new technology being introduced. As a CIO, what do you take into account when you're kind of mapping out how new technologies might cause ripples within an organization?
Thanks, JP. Yeah, it's a complicated question because there's lots of layers to it, I think. Typically when we're thinking about understanding technologies, there's a whole load of discovery that goes on really about understanding the technology potential. When we think about a CIO in terms of delivering value back to the business, we're often solving problems, and we're solving problems that are aligned to the strategy. So if you think about where's the company strategy going? What are the big challenges that we have? How do we deliver solutions back to the business to help it achieve its strategy? And in the world of solutions for me, I think about people, process, technology, and data. So when we're solving a problem, we're not solving it with technology, we're solving it with a solution. And I think that's a really important kind of paradigm in terms of delivering value back to a business rather than delivering technology back to a business. So in that context, I think often there is organizational change that's driven from a solution that we're delivering to the business to solve a problem. Businesses are always changing shape and accelerating with the world of AI that's coming around the corner. We've gone through the internet acceleration, the SaaS acceleration. Now we're hitting the AI acceleration. The thing and just the innovation curve is really just taking off. What didn't seem possible 6 months ago is now very possible in the world of AI. So with that level of transformational capability, I think there's inevitable that we'll have organizational change associated with solutions that we deliver back to the business. I think that's a fundamental. And when I think about some of that technology, I think some technologies are really orientated more around automation and automation of existing processes. And some technologies are very much more transformational. And the transformational technologies, again, like AI, really lend themselves to changing the shape of the business as part of the solution.
Gotcha. Appreciate insights on that. So how soon does it make sense to kind of bring in leadership stakeholders, be from the C-suite, from other elements of the company, team leaders, to just kind of work on, the plan to integrate the new tech, in the way the organization, is operating and might change?
So back to that point about, what's the business strategy? What are the problems we're trying to solve? How do we leverage people, process, technology to achieve it? I work very closely with the business leaders and bring them in super early. Often we're thinking about, when we're ideating about how to frame, the problem we're trying to solve, even before we get to solution, because there's so many different solution options, which one's the right kind of option for us at the right kind of time, the right level of maturity of our business. You don't want to, crack a nut with a sledgehammer, as it were. You want something that's more age appropriate to wherever your business evolution is. And having the business leaders, like having an executive sponsor on a really critical project, is a really important part, I think, of the early stage engagement about like what exactly is the problem we're trying to solve here. And when we think about spinning up a team to solve that problem, who can best represent the business as part of that team? So, we think, I think very classically around, having portfolios of work that we're delivering across the business and how we manage the portfolios, having sponsors, executive sponsors for each portfolio, and working closely with the execs around, how do we stack rank the problems we're trying to solve, and therefore the projects and programs, and how do we work together through steering teams and core team structures in delivering those kind of, in delivering what the business needs. And sometimes that's challenging some of the norms, what they think, try and keep the business focused around the problem we're trying to solve, not necessarily technology to do it. Like the technologists focus on how do we integrate technologies to create a great solution, and focus the business teams on what's the problem we're trying to solve. And in the new world, how will that execute in the new world? Back to your point about, is there organizational change, needed in that solution? Let's get ahead of planning for that, rather than, it being a surprise. We deliver some technology and it's not quite working right because we needed to actually change some roles and responsibilities and some structures to get value from that technology.
Speaking of planning, how do you go about planning in terms of the training and transition, the actual, where the rubber meets the road, or where I guess the humanity meets the digital with new technology in the organization?
Back to that project stage, if you think about your scoping, you're defining requirements, you're doing a design, you're probably iterating through various different solution delivery options, choosing an option, execution. At the back end of there, for me, is a launch phase. So part of deployment is like, how do you launch a solution back into the business again? And it's not so much focusing on the technology, it's around the people, process, technology, data of that solution that we need to deliver. We have a training team that specifically work with us on training, for example. We work on communication. We think about like the change management of what we're doing in terms of how we're deploying it. The last thing we want to do as a CIO function is to impact the business negatively. We don't want to slow down our businesses. We want to have a smooth introduction of, solutions back into the business that help achieve their goals. And you've really got to do that launching of that solution in a very structured and orderly way. Disruption is not your friend. Like, you create confusion within your user community about what's the problem we're trying to solve, and how are their work instructions changing. I used to do it this way, but now in the new world, I'm doing it that way. And that takes time for people. The more complex solution, the more you need to train and make sure they're comfortable in the transition. And also for us, I think, one of the big learnings, particularly with AI coming in, is thinking about how we POC technology and test it. Because, a lot of these AI technologies are very new. And that testing phase and the learning phase of that technology is an important kind of aspect to us about like how complicated or disruptive is this in terms of how we deploy it into the user community. So, I think there's a lot of value in POCs and kind of progressive deployments rather than big implementations where you're causing an awful lot of disruptions to the business in a short space of time. Part of my goal is in delivering a solution to the business is doing it in a smooth and organized way, thinking about people, process, and technology.
I mean, you talk about disruption not being your friend. What is, or is there a threshold where you kind of say, hey, this is pushing too much too fast for the organization? Where I can play devil's advocate for certain folks who will clutch tenaciously to their COBOL based systems. You're like, how dare you try to bring in these things, because everything is held together by the systems, and this is the only way I know for it to operate. If you bring all this in, everything will fall apart, at least from their perspective.
So we mentioned briefly there the rate of innovation is accelerating.
Yeah.
And I think in the middle of that, of course, is AI and how AI solutions are evolving. Every major platform has now got some level of AI capabilities, and there's point solutions and platforms. We're assessing platform capabilities and point solutions. I think businesses, the AI industry is accelerated very fast and is running really ahead of itself. And a lot of the visionary discussions around the capabilities of AI are ahead of where the products are right now, the capabilities. Many companies are just launching agentic solutions right now into the industry. And I got to tell you, even as we're looking into those agentic solutions, and Amplitude is doing the same in terms of launching its own AI agent on top of our platform, the solutions are becoming incredible. Like what agentic could do for a business is phenomenal in terms of assimilating all that data, looking at the best strategies, executing changes in your environment or changes in your code. So I think the rate of innovation is really accelerating. The industry is reaching ahead to try and leverage that level of innovation. And it's putting a lot of pressure on functions to move faster and faster and change faster, and probably be bolder about the level of change that we're going to embrace. And I think those companies that can partner well with their business and bring technology and business really closely together and think about delivering solutions for the future, not necessarily for the now, and having AI integrated in them, will be really pushing the boundaries on how much change you can actually absorb in a space and time. Like, our teams are super, super busy working through all of our projects, and AI has become, implementing AI use cases has become our top priority. And underneath that top priority of AI use cases and really being more visionary about how we can transform our business through AI and get ahead, is also having that data consolidation layer. Having all your data into one place so that it's ready for AI is an important consideration. So from a CIO's perspective right now, I imagine a lot of my peers are feeling an awful lot of pressure in their businesses to accelerate the rate of change and be bolder and more visionary. And that, will require us to really understand and lean into those AI tech. And that will change and transform the business. I think we're moving from a world of automating with SaaS applications to AI as a world of transforming, where, it's a transformational workflow. Can I give you an example or two?
Please.
Maybe, JP, just like what we're thinking about. So, for example, let's take the post-sales customer success management function for a moment. In a traditional kind of SaaS-based business, you'll end up with your marketing, sales, and post-sales functions, all working closely together. And we're very kind of focused around creating account teams that work with our customers, post-sales and pre-sales working together as a team, working with the customer. But we often have those teams in separate environments. Sales are working in one world, like, Salesforce. Post-sales are working in another world, like Gainsight. And that level of disaggregation of the data of the customer and the different workflows doesn't really help them, help our account teams be most effective in front of the customer. So by bringing those worlds together from a technology perspective, you create a much more streamlined engagement model for our employees to work with our customers, or our account teams to work with our customers. And so I think on the back of that, you end up with this disruption around the customer success function. Like, how separate should customer success be from, the accounting, the sales kind of functions? How should they be separate functions? Should they be integrated? Is it one platform they should be working on? It's one customer that they're working on, and it's one CRM, customer relationship management. Really, one view of the customer is critical. So I think if you extend that a little bit further with AI now, I think the future is that you build that customer success capabilities within the products, which are AI agents monitoring the use of an application, and then seeing where customers are or are not using the value or features of that application, and suggesting, an assistant that suggests back to the customer how best to use the product and get value from the product. And that's really kind of almost like the core role of the customer success management function. Is like, will that actually move within the product and be an agent? Will instead of having customer success outside, are we actually going to have customer success agents effectively sitting inside the products that are helping customers inside the workflow get value from? So there's a whole like layers of, transformation in there. Do you just automate? Do you integrate onto a common platform, or do you go agentic and think about that role actually living within the platform? And then, that involves the role of the customer success function. It's not going to go away. I think it'll just evolve what that role actually does. Sorry, that was a long answer, JP.
Oh, hey, great answers are always appreciated. Okay, great. All right. Well, this comes to my favorite part of the podcast, where we get to the tabletop exercise portion, where we're going to, pose some questions to you as you take on effectively the CIO role for the ever lovely Questionable Ideas Are Us company. As I whip out my Shadowrun screen again. Folks who are watching or checking this out for the first time. Questionable Ideas Are Us is a fictional company, and the tasks that I'm asking Dan to deal with as the fictional CIO for them are not reflective of anything that he would actually need to do within his company. Of course, this is all for the sake of tabletop exercise to see how to deal with some rather preposterous situations that I cooked up.
I love the disclaimer. That was awesome.
Okay. All right. Again. So, all right. Questionable Ideas Are Us is transitioning to a new contract management and billing platform. It's, supposed to be streamlined and integrated to work seamlessly across all divisions. But there are some holdouts inside and out of your company. A few longtime customers are not keen on change, largely because they are uncomfortable. They are comfortable with their older systems that do not mesh with what Questionable Ideas Are Us is moving to. Internally, there are teams that are frustrated that being retrained to a new system not that long after completing masterclass certifications in using and managing the old system. How do you address these internal and external resistance?
For me, it's all about the value. If we're going to spend a material amount of time driving an implementation of a major system, we have to be really convinced of the value that it offers to both our customers and our employees. And I think part of that journey is spending time with the teams, really understanding the current workflows and the issues. And in the middle of that value, like really challenge the vendor to say, like, is what you have transformational for our business, not just for today, but for tomorrow. So I think kind of understanding that value and pitching the value back. If we understand the problems of our user community, think about like how we frame back this solution again, like people process technology solution to solve some of those problems. And I think normally if you've chosen well on the platform that you're choosing, it's not too hard to position the value back to the different communities. Having all of your contracts consolidated, effective contract management saves your field teams a lot of time, your legal teams a lot of time, finance teams. You can find your contracts, which is always helpful, and have all the metadata from those contracts back into your Salesforce environments to manage your install base. And when you're coming up for renewals, you actually have access to that contract metadata to be able to process new quotes and renewal quotes again. So there's a huge level of value in an integrated contract management solution. So I think sometimes that sounds more like a case of selling the solution a little bit back into the communities on the value of why we would put the effort into doing the work. Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Gotcha. Well, you definitely put the right words together to say the juice being worth the squeeze. So yeah, good job on that one. All right, next scenario. Questionable Ideas Are Us has adopted a new AI-powered ideation platform, is what they're calling it, that mostly has been seen as an efficiency enhancement by the core divisions of the company. But one team has leveraged this platform to develop a new business concept they believe has potential that might be eventually worth spinning out. Now, while the process of creating a startup within the company was not part of the original plan with making use of this platform, the board of directors is at least curious to see what comes of this. The only problem is the team they're called Let's Break Stuff, now requires much of the data center resources that are used by the core business to support their efforts. Let's Break Stuff has not yet proven it can scale up their idea or that it can capture enough of the market to merit taking away such resources. How do you navigate supporting the stable core business while new ideas sprout from the introduction of this new technology?
It's a brilliant question. Well, I think first of all, you got to be open-minded. We don't have all the answers yet. And often some of the best ideas come from corners of the business where if we listen carefully, there's some very creative approaches on generating new revenue, solving new problems. So be open-minded. At the end of the day, I think it goes back to strategy. What is our strategy? What are the most important things that we have to achieve? And we do need to prioritize resources on achieving that. That's the point of having like that strategy conversation, alignment of the portfolios, focus the resources. I do think it's good to have some capacity that can work on creative new ideas, but it's got to be kind of controlled so that it doesn't, impact really delivering on the core strategy of the business and the core needs from the CIO function. I think if I was, I would dig into that new idea and try and just get opinionated as to whether I really think it's a breakthrough concept. Because I think sometimes on these ideas, like if you get deep into it, is this really going to be a breakthrough? And if it is, do you feel convicted about it? Do you really want to put some more wood behind the arrow, as it were, on it? Then go back and make a pitch for how either we redistribute resources, priorities, or find some creative ways of getting some resources or support to accelerate the initiative. But I think, like in the middle of here, be transparent. Be transparent about the strategy, the priorities, the work we're doing, the stack we have, these ideas, and how should we think about blending these ideas with our core priorities and how much energy we should put into it. Because if you do decide to lean into that creative idea and you lean out from some of your core strategies, I think it's good that you've got the executive team on board with you about the decisions we're making around priorities and resources. Don't do it in isolation, do it together.
Sounds very reasonable, very reasonable. And definitely that question actually stemmed from in the way back machine for myself. I was covering the formation of a startup within a much larger organization. They had a novel idea. They were going to start to take off. And then the day came where Facebook essentially popped up and said, "Oh, we're doing that." and that just really imploded things almost immediately. So novel ideas, but taking a measured approach. Definitely appreciate that insight. Okay.
Got to take risks somewhere along the line, right?
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Here's for the big one. All right. Word has been spreading through Questionable Ideas R Us that the next technology overhaul will be company-wide and drive new efficiencies that various teams makes various teams concerned about layoffs. Logistics, customer service, and even internal developers are concerned that their roles will be cut in favor of newly minted AI resources that are trained off of their efforts. Team leaders from those groups have gathered to ask questions and are seated patiently outside the boardroom where you and the other C-suite officers have gathered to have a conversation. Before those team leaders are brought in, the CFO, who proudly goes by the nickname Barracuda Barry, locks the door. Barracuda Barry sits down and interrupts the CEO, who was known to waffle in the face of confrontation. Barry looks at the team leaders waiting outside and then looks at all of you and asks all of you in the boardroom, why are those people still in this building? And why haven't you implemented my plan to make us more nimble and cost efficient?
There you go. Oh, wow. So AI is going to be transformational. And I think it's important when we think about bringing AI into a company, I think it's important to make sure the employees understand the fundamentals. We've conducted a number of training sessions across our different groups around. We set up an AI program we prioritized a number of different use cases that we were going after and technologies we were interested in. And in the middle of that program, I think, enablement and education of the employee base around what is AI and where's the potential going to go is an important part of the journey that you bring the teams along, because I'm sure AI is going to transform businesses. Roles that are where AI can be really effective, those roles are going to evolve and they're going to up level, I think, into more complex kind of human orientated tasks. So if you've got AI that can do a really good job of like sourcing all kinds of data, data insights from your environment, the role of analysts poring over that data is going to become less relevant. We're going to have technologies that are going to provide more insights to us in a more effective way. However, there's still a role in there for analysts, but the role's changed. So I think within the middle of this whole AI conversation is understanding AI and understanding how it's going to evolve roles. And it will definitely drive productivity and efficiency across organizations. And I'm surely going to be implementing that over the next few years, and it is going to be disruptive. But I think, we need to manage that in a humane way and support organizations and teams through those journeys together. It's not going to replace us all, but it's definitely going to make a transformational impact on our businesses. And I would encourage everybody to get highly AI literate, know how to use generative AI, know how to use different tools, because the roles of the future will be roles where, being AI literate is going to be just an important part of the job.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Well, Barracuda Barry's happy with that. Though I personally feel that Barracuda Barry should probably be, grabbed by his ear and told to, hey, listen, you're not the CEO, you're CFO.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the role of the CEO as well. The role of the executive team is to be challenging and to think about like how we're going to be, where are we going to be in 3 to 5 years time, and how will we transform as a business, not just from a market perspective, but internally too. So I think, take the employee base on a journey through the world of AI, form a program around it, be aggressive about bringing technologies in. Don't be worried that some technologies won't work, and we're definitely going to consolidate along the way. Don't look for perfection. I think just go for speed, and but do it in a measured way where you're not creating chaos, and do it in a humane way where we're thoughtful of the team members around us and how we're bringing these technologies into the organization and changing the roles. Like let's all go on a journey together.
Gotcha. Great. Well, here's to humanity, less chaos as organizations go through transitions with new technology. Listen, Dan, you have been fantastic. I thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
JP, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.